Hey everybody, I'm Parker Brown and I'm on my soapbox about guns. It's been a long time since I posted and this is not the greatest quality video ever, but we're going to try to accomplish a little education here today because I carry this Glock 19 every day. And as you can see, it's got some custom work on it, a few custom parts made and definitely some body work. But I like this gun, and I carry this gun. However, in a lot of ways, it is inferior to the 1911. Which does have some custom grips on it that I 3D printed because I'm into that. And it is a Rock Island M1911 A1, even though it's not technically an A1, but the 1911 is superior in one huge way to the Glock, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to set that aside for a second. Now let's say I need to do some maintenance on my Glock. I want to change out a part, or I just want to detail strip it and clean it, whatever. For some reason I need to disassemble this pistol. Well, everybody knows it's stupid simple to get a Glock slide off. Done. Recoil spring, barrel. That's field maintenance, but let's go deeper. So you press your little button to release the striker pressure there. And now I need a tool, and I'm just going to use this drill bit because it's handy. I push down on that little sleeve in there, and I can take off the back plate. And my striker assembly comes out. My extractor. The firing pin safety. And that's basically your slide. I'm not going to disassemble this because it is kind of a pain to get back together. But okay, there's your slide, and I had to use one tool. I can't do anything with the frame. Nothing. I have to have some kind of punch set just to disassemble the frame. So disassembly stops here because I don't have a punch set. I mean, really I do, but I'm not going to use it. This is to prove a point. I cannot disassemble this frame without using a punch set. So let me put this back together real quick. And again, I have to use a tool. And I'm just using a drill bit because it's what I have handy. And the Glock's back together. So, yeah, that's my weird little tick. Now, let's do the 1911. Well, first things first, I'm going to empty the magazine. All right. Go ahead and remove our recoil spring plug. Slide stop pin, and the slide comes off. Recoil spring and guide rod come out. Barrel bushing, rotate. Pull that out. And the barrel. I'll come back to this in a second. Now for the frame. The follower on the magazine, or even the rim of a .45 cartridge, are the same size as the screws in the grip, which is why I don't like using all these fancy hex head screws for grips. Yeah, I put custom grips on it because the ones that it came with were a smooth Cocobolo wood, and I didn't like that. So I printed these nice golf ball dimple texture grips out of some pretty silver filament, and I like that. So I take the grip screws out using the follower in the magazine. Or you can use the rim of a casing. John Browning designed it to use with the rim of a casing. That's why they're the same size. It just so happens that one improvement that we have had over the ages is the follower in the magazine. They're no longer the bent sheet metal square type. Now they have a bit more geometry to them, and that makes it a good screwdriver. And it'll come in handy here in a second. So there's the grips off. Now, it only takes finger pressure. I'm going to take off the thumb safety. Get that to about the halfway position and lift it up. And there's your plungers. Your grip safety, your thumb safety post is the same diameter as the pin holding in your mainspring. So I'm going to release tension on the hammer. And force out that pin. And there's your mainspring assembly. Now I'm not going to take this down any further, even though I could, because there's a strong spring in there. And I'm not doing that. Grip safety. Hammer spring, well, 3-foil spring, the flat spring assembly. Now, you can take your plunger and use that to start the pin for your hammer. It's not tight, you just need something to poke with it. Or poke at it with, rather. I like to try and keep my parts organized, even though I know where they all go. But now your hammer's free. And the hammer strut is the same diameter as your sear pin. So there's your sear pin. And out comes those. Your sear and your disconnector. Your magazine catch is what's holding in your trigger. Your flat spring has this little angled end on it here that makes a perfect little screwdriver here. So you push in on your magazine catch while rotating that screw. And that releases it. And now your trigger comes out. Now, back to the slide assembly. Using your hammer strut again, you can push down on the firing pin and kind of angle out your back plate, put your thumb over it so it doesn't go flying. Back plate's off, firing pin spring, and you can use your firing pin to lift up on the extractor. And it's all disassembled. Pretty darn simple. And then you just do the same thing backwards to put it all together. Notice I haven't touched a screwdriver or a punch or a drill bit or anything in this process. I'm using the parts of the gun to disassemble the gun because John Moses Browning designed it that way. Hats off to Gaston Glock for making a super simple pistol, and I love my Glock, but you can't do this with a Glock. This right here is about the only hard part to it, is getting this magazine catch realigned again. And there you go. It's about the easiest I've done it in a week. Lay in your disconnector and your sear over top of that. Pull on the trigger. Just give it a little bit of wiggle until those holes align. And those are back in place. Now, you can put in the hammer. And your flat spring assembly. Well, not really an assembly, it's one part. Your flat spring set. And then I just tuck my spring housing right there to hold it in place so it doesn't pop out. Grip safety lays in place over top of that. Give a little bit of pressure and start that pin. And then here's where people are going to cry and moan and wail at their screens. Yeah, I did that. And your grip safety, you gotta cock the hammer to, I appear to have made some kind of mistake. The sear assembly, I think, was out of alignment. Let's try this again. Yep, it was out of alignment. I can tell now putting the hammer in because there's some resistance. You can see it actually cocks now. So, back to where I was. Make sure you hold down your grip safety because it'll come up and then you can't put it underneath. So you gotta make sure it's down while you insert your mainspring housing. Now, we cock the hammer. Take our plungers, put them in facing the right way. And here's where the magazine comes in handy again. I'm just going to pinch that in place a little bit and use the follower of the magazine to push the plungers in place. And since the metal is smaller than the diameter of the pins, the thumb safety will pass over the pins to get them back into place. Excuse me, the plungers to get them back in place, and then I can slide this back out. Super simple. Put my grip panels back on. This is probably the most time-consuming part of everything. So you got to do them about half a turn at a time. Okay. Slide assembly back on. Slide lock lever. Engage the safety so the slide doesn't move. Did that taking it apart too if I didn't say so. Push your plunger down. There you go. So it may take a little while, but the 1911 is its own toolbox. You don't need a punch set, you don't need a screwdriver, you don't need a hammer, you don't need anything other than the gun, its magazine, and, if you can, a round. You don't necessarily need a round because the follower in the magazine does the job for you, but if you have the older style magazines, you're going to need the rim of a casing to undo those screws. Because John Moses Browning was a genius.